I'd like to welcome back to stage Flipper and CryptoSal from Mysteria. We've had these guys here twice before. Last year, it was actually last year. I think the second time on Solana Gaming Saturdays was just before Christmas. And they had dates. They were looking at an early January launch. Everything got moved around. They lined up different DeFi partners, and they've had their first game. We'll get into details about that a little bit. But they've got their second round coming up on the 5th of February. And I definitely want to get the boys back and have a chat, see how they've gone over the last month, and catch up to them. And it's to me, it's one of these games that's free to play, and you guys can actually use your brain to make some prizes. So first off, I just want to say we're going to be doing some prizes today. So if you've got a verified wallet or above, just taking a screenshot there. If you've got a verified wallet or above and you've actually come to stage, then I'm going to be rewarding 3 whitelists today. So I want to really make these shows coming to channels not just about giving gifts, but I want questions. I want the crowd to be a part of it. And this is a game that is designed around playing, solving riddles, solving puzzles, but it's free. And if you're a part of communities like Grape, you're going to be getting extra clues as well. So I've got extra whitelists to hand out, and that's for games that are coming up and obviously events that are coming up. So I've done a screenshot, and I'll launch that in the live questions. So what is that going to be? That is going to be a whitelist for Dot Shade, a whitelist for the Lux VR Metaverse, and a clue for CryptoSal and Flipper's game. That's from Mysteria, the second one this weekend. So hopefully the numbers get up. If we've got any B-class members that want to ask a question, please put your hand up and we will get you coming on stage. But we've got some questions in the live chat we'll get through later. First off, I'd like to welcome Flipper. How are you going, dude?
Everything's great over here.
So it's cool to see you back, Flipper. Crypto, how you going, man?
Good. I'm just enjoying listening to you, you know.
It's been about a month. So you had a big month. You went through Christmas and you've actually gone and had your first launch. But how do we want to tackle this at the start? What's happened in the last month? Who wants to talk that through?
You want to do it, Flipper?
You go for it.
All right. So yeah, I mean, Barndog gave a pretty good overview of the past up to the present. So we originally built this game around the time of the hackathon, and so most of what we were doing was scoping as small as possible to deliver something for the hackathon within the window of time. So 30 to 45 days to build something. Following the completion of the hackathon and not winning any prize money, we started to think strategy wise, like, how are we going to get sponsorships? How are we going to get to like having people actually play the game? And I've been pretty involved with different DeFi projects and NFT communities. And so I kind of just started reaching out to different communities that I thought would make good sense. And so that was around November, I would say. And we landed on talking with Marinade, and coming into the new year, we kind of decided like, okay, we could do a private launch, private event. We'll do 3 of the 16 ciphers with people from Marinade, and maybe they can also include other DeFi partners that they work with. So that's kind of the origin story of the private event, and kind of why it ended up going from, completion, basically a game complete back at the time of the hackathon, which was August, October, November-ish, I think, to not launching until January. So really, it was all about like, okay, how do we get people to play this game to make the competition meaningful? Because if you're playing by yourself, like, okay, great, you win some of these prizes, but it's not really a competition the way that we wanted it to be. So first game, super successful. Like we basically took the 16 ciphers, like I said, we took 3 of them, put that into the private launch. And so there's still 13 remaining to be solved, and we're going to break those 13 into at least probably 2 more rounds. So the next round that we're having Saturday will be probably 5 ciphers. So that'll put us like halfway through the total content that we have for this specific game. End of message.
I am listening. Just trying to go through. I was going to go and look at the get the document link. Sorry, I didn't have it ready to go for the first round. So you had 3 questions on the first round, and this is what I wanted to break down, because I want to break down in 2 stages how the first event went, and of course talk more detail on that, because you did do it as that private launch with was it 5 communities? It was 4 at least. It was 5 though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was 5. It was Marinade, Saber, Sonar, Friction, and why is the 5th one always blank for me? Which one did I forget?
Saber.
Did I say it? Marinade, Saber, Friction, Sonar, and shit. I forget. But yeah, Barndog, you wanted to know basically like what was the question there?
Yeah, I'm still trying to chase up this access for the Medium article that you did, but we had the three ciphers, the three hard questions in the event. Let's crunch some numbers for the crowd, like 630 contestants, prize pool of 15 SOL, 4,000 Sonar, and you've got a lot of things like 60 countries, 250 cities. I'll link this out for the crowd. What were some of the things from the key metrics that you guys took away from your first event, then, being 5 private communities?
Yeah, I'll jump in really quick. So Jupiter was the other one that we didn't mention. It was really interesting to see how quickly people were able to solve some of the things, and how we thought some of the puzzles would be very difficult that wound up being easy, and vice versa. So we found that we had, I think, 2 people were able to solve it without any clues whatsoever. And that was, I think, largely the Marinade community were the first people to solve. And then the rest kind of came in a little bit after that as we started releasing clues. But it was fun to see the answers roll in real time, and see people all of a sudden post in our Discord that they had solved all 3 of them. And that was within just a couple hours. So this next round is going to be, I believe, 5 ciphers, 5 puzzles. And it's going to last a couple more days than the last one. So you have a little bit of extra time. However, given that the previous one was answered in just a couple hours, we don't know how long it's going to take this time. I can say that the puzzles themselves will be about the same level of difficulty. And yes, that is including a world unfolding, one that was not first solved until about, I think that was like 16 hours into it. So there will be a couple puzzles of that level of difficulty, or maybe even a little bit harder.
Sorry, that was the world unfolding. So that took a huge amount of time.
So that was the one that we posted the solution for on a Medium post, and we can probably post a link to that in case you guys haven't seen it. But we did a write-up of the intended path of solving that one and how it could have been solved.
Absolutely. If you could link that, would be good. I definitely haven't seen that one myself.
Let me go find that while Crypto.sol.
I've got it.
Because obviously people are going to want to know. So this is a cipher contest. It's going to be hard. You've got a couple of people solving it within 2 to 8 hours. That's pretty cool. That's amazing, considering they've had no help, or they've had no clues and usage in that. Just for the people listening into the stage and that, we're going to be going through questions and stuff as well. So you need to make sure you're here for the whole AMA, and then we will do those prizes at the end. I'll get details, all that kind of stuff. But one of the prizes we're going to have is going to be an additional clue for this competition. So it's not going to be a clue that you can just use straight off the bat. It's going to be a timed event. So the clues, we'll get into the clues in a little bit more of a section. We'll keep going on this. Crypto has he... Yes, Zav's got it for us.
Yeah, and I saw God's Love asked for kind of just an overview of the game, maybe only 4 minutes ago, so it's probably still relevant to just give a quick overview.
Perfect. Go for it. Fire up.
Yeah, so it's a puzzle game. I think that's the main way to say it. It's a web application based game, so it's not built in Unity. It's not something you need to go download Steam for or whatever. To actually download and play. So you just you log into the URL, and then you can start solving. You'll need a Phantom wallet to connect to play, and the reason we did that originally is just so One, like you're actually like that's your user authentication method. We store your progress against the wallet that you're playing with, and two, we are introducing and planned originally to introduce clues and purchases. So the way it works is this first round is titled, the first game is called The Old Castle, and there were 16, and there were 16 because now there's 13 total ciphers remaining to solve in this particular game. We are breaking up those ciphers into multiple rounds, and that came out of the partnership with Marinade and the other communities. So we gave them, we worked with them, and we did 3, and the remaining 13 will be solved over probably 2 more rounds. To solve the puzzles, that Brain Breaker link is a really good example of like the type of puzzle you could see. It's very challenging. For some people, it's easier though, and like this is something we discussed in a previous AMA was like some people will look at a puzzle and they'll just know where to go immediately, and other people will just be like, I don't know. And so that sometimes it can be good to work with somebody else, and that's kind of some free alpha for you.
Yeah, I want to touch on the team play and that kind of thing. So obviously it needs to be talked about, and it's something I mentioned pre start to the show. I'll be putting in a team. So it's definitely so clues, quizzes, ciphers, all on Phantom only. So I guess does that mean people are going to start being able to play on iOS? Is that optional? Is that going to be an option for them?
Well, let me just say that it's to your advantage to play on desktop. You should play on desktop.
And that's having a bigger screen, being able to see details, that kind of thought process behind it.
Yeah, and if you look at the Medium post describing how something was solved, it's borderline impossible to do on iOS. At least I have no idea how you would even go about it on iOS. That's not to say every puzzle will be like that. Some could be solved on mobile, but we're recommending that people play on desktop for that type of reason. We don't want to limit the ability for someone to solve based on the platform they're on. So if you try to play the game on iOS, it should give you a message, like an error message saying that this game is best played on like a desktop with a certain resolution.
Okay, so that's important now for their desktop, certain resolution. Good to know. I guess does that then limit the crowd a little bit in a way?
Perhaps. I think we got some screenshots of people playing on tablets and things like that, which is fine. But this is meant to be a pretty in-depth puzzle game, one that isn't easily solved by just looking at it. Right? You're not going to be able to just look at a picture and say, "Oh, I know the answer." That's not the type of puzzles we're going for. It also isn't, unfortunately, like a game like The Room, which was the really popular iOS puzzle game, which was made in Unity and 3D, and you can walk around the room. We're not quite there yet. So this is still a web-based game, which kind of limits our options. We're willing to take the hit of people who, can't play because they only have iOS or they only have a mobile platform. There's only so much you can do with puzzles on a pure mobile device.
I would say, let me add one piece to that. In one of the earlier puzzles we ran with Grape, one of the guys, after that, we brought him into the community, and he was a very smart guy, still is a smart guy. And he was like, we brought a new challenge to him from some other community, and there was like a $20,000 prize for this unsolved thing. It was an R-Wave puzzle. And quote unquote, he said, "Hold on, let me get my tools." And I think that's kind of an insightful thing, which is when you're tackling some of these puzzles, you need to think about how well equipped you are, what tools you have in front of you to help solve. And if you're on certain devices, or for example, you're in the middle of the forest with no internet service, like probably not going to be a good thing. So that's kind of another bit of alpha for you, which is just kind of think about what do I really need to be equipped to solve these as best as possible.
Just writing this down, getting my alpha for the weekend, getting it all in the brain. Yeah, I'm guessing people are going to need to float across. I noticed there was one tweet, because obviously you guys fire out tweets and keep a bit of a suspense going in Twitter at the same time during the event. we had you here and you did a live quiz for us, and that was a live cipher for us, and that was a fun event. I was at work at the time, but I still listened in. And one of the reactions I remember you had said, one of the tweets was, you don't need to know specific geography. It was more of a broad, you needed to know a broad sense of it. So you weren't giving advantage to individual country members per chance. Could you elaborate more on that? Like, what was that centered at?
Yeah, it's a big point here. I find that a lot of puzzle games that aren't made well, in my opinion, or some stuff that I've seen in the crypto space, because we're not the first ones to do puzzles in the crypto space, but a lot of them wind up being the answers like, oh, it's my grandpa's name, and that's the example I use for that's not a good puzzle. So we don't want to give any particular geography, type of person, anything really, an advantage or disadvantage. You should never have to have access to some local knowledge. I used the term in Discord the other day of like, nothing will be colloquial. It shouldn't be anything that you would look at and say, well, that's unfair. There's no way I'd be able to get that. All these puzzles will be able to be solved by anybody with enough acumen and enough determination to go in and say, okay, what's really going on here? So that's pretty important. It's kind of a clue, right? It's a little bit of a hint, but it's the basic idea is that every puzzle should be fair. If you feel like it's not fair, feel free to tell us, but that's our goal when we're developing these.
I've got some questions in the crowd, and I do want to get through them because it's awesome to see. Obviously, the questions are going to be about different parts, and it might put us in and out of a specific order. But what was the general reaction? You had 630. What was the general reaction from the crowd? Did you have some high points and low points from the crowd? Information and feedback from the first 3 Cypher quiz and event?
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. I think I would say first probably 6 hours, a lot of people coming in, taking a look at the game, not knowing what to do, and maybe giving up. And then there were other people who took that time and said, okay, I'll take on the challenge and I'm going to do it. And so, I think there is some level of like in the face of difficulty, like very obscure difficulty, there will be people who just kind of dip, and there will be other people who take the challenge. And that's part of the puzzle spirit, and people who solve these types of puzzles and play these games. It's like, it's not easy. There's actually like a very good intersection, in my opinion, between what we call the glass chewers in crypto or in Solana, people who are writing in Rust, and people who want to solve puzzles like these. You enjoy it because the feeling when you get it right, it's incredible. So I think we got some good feedback, just like some people being very concerned about the difficulty, while meanwhile other people were like, okay, this is sweet. I have some leads to go on, and they start going down the detective rabbit hole. And they ended up winning quite a bit of money. And one of the actual winners is in the audience. I'm not going to point him out, but here, probably because he's seeking even more alpha to get an advantage in the next game. So it's good to see him in here. But I think, yeah, I mean, the general feedback was good. Puzzles were hard, some were easier. Actually, and one point for us was that one of the puzzles we thought would be the easiest was the hardest, and the inverse.
Yeah.
So one of the ones we thought would be the hardest was the easiest. So that was another interesting learning. So you can't really totally predict the puzzle difficulty. You can of course test it on different people before you do it, but there's always a concern of like, are they leaking the information? Like, are they going to give the answers to somebody else?
Yeah, and I mean, we'll talk about that with team play and stuff as well. We'll get deeper into that. But so it sounds like generally positive reviews, and I think people will dip as well. But you're going for a very niche market there. And it was, I guess, an intelligent call for going for the DeFi markets at the start to do a special launch, because then you're going to have people from Jupiter, from Saber. These are people that are heavily intelligent people that are doing some degenerate plays with a lot of the DeFi moves. So that was a good choice. But how do you think it's going to grow over time with the second event this weekend? Does it feel like it's going to be bigger? Has the marketing been good? Are you happy with the progression?
Good question too. So kind of we have about, I would say, 10 communities lined up across different project areas. So that's DeFi, gaming, NFT gaming, and then just like strictly NFT projects that don't necessarily have utility or anything else. Those are all lined up for us to give kind of like work with coming into this next round and give them an opportunity to bring some of their community members to play. Knowing that it's a niche game, it's not like we're building Call of Duty here, so you can expect a lower engagement rate than you might see on like a AAA game like that, or a FIFA type game, etc. We know that's coming. We know that that's going to be a factor. So I think like when we're just looking at this, we're pretty excited about how things have gone so far. The two ways to extend the product are like, you can always make the ciphers easier for people, which isn't necessarily what we want to do when we're awarding prize money. But you can reach out to a larger community outside of just Solana. So like, could the game be playable for people who don't have a Phantom wallet, for example? What might that look like? Because there are a lot of super smart people out there that solve ciphers and puzzles all the time in different games that just have nothing to do with crypto or blockchain. So that is kind of like a consideration for growing the product in the future.
Well, I do want to get through a few of these questions because we've got them in different channels as well. But Sergeant Savage has asked, in the old castle, is the old castle NFT just a trophy, or will it have utility later in the game?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I kind of want to just say no comment.
Okay, that's still a comment. So watch that space. There's people in the crowd trying to find out the alpha. There was also, it's a question I don't really understand if it's relevant. Which team had the most players? I mean, there was a couple of teams pointed out. We'll talk about that when we get to it. From Flabber. What do you mean by tools? So going back to mentioning people needing tools. So could you elaborate a little bit more on that? What are some good things possible that, without giving away all of the great answers, what do you mean by tools?
Say like,
okay, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if you're a non-technical person playing against somebody who is technical, and imagine that. Here's an example. Let's say that the riddle is a 4-letter word, and that's what the game maker tells you, is that the answer is a 4-letter word. What you can do if you're a programmer or have any sort of scripting skills is try every possible combination of 4-letter words in there, versus somebody who's non-technical, who like isn't trying to brute force an answer. They're just trying to actually figure out the answer to the cipher and figure out the clues. So when I'm talking about tools, and that guy I was referencing, like, he was more on the technical side. But the reason that was important is because the cipher design that we were playing for allowed for that kind of brute force technical approach. Our game does not. We've like intentionally tried to keep that out of the game. That's why we don't tell you, the number of letters or whatever characters the actual answers would be. And there are other things we do too, but I think that's just kind of important. Like, we try to keep the game fair for people who don't necessarily have crazy scripting skills or anything like that.
So I guess you could also use something like an old Scrabble app as well that would go 4-letter words, and if you give it a certain amount of letters, it's got all these possibilities.
Yeah, it's kind of, like at that point, you're brute forcing the answer. You're not really answering trying to solve the cipher, so to speak.
But I guess then Google would probably be one of the biggest friends in trying to thought process out some of the games, putting in thoughts to give you trigger the brain, all those kinds of things.
No comment.
So that's one of the tools right there, ladies and gentlemen. Let Google do the walking for you. It's funny, we're becoming a dumber nation, dumber world with Google. It's good for some things, but it's not always great for others. At what ways does the game interact with the blockchain? The second one from God's Love.
A few ways. I mean, first of all, you do sign in with your wallet. As for why that is, there's a couple of reasons. One is we need to know where to send your prize money, obviously. It is just a really good way to enable sending money, receiving prizes. We're not going to ask you for your PayPal account, right? So that seems like the most no-brainer way to receive a prize pool. In this round, not last round. Last round we gave away the clues for free because it was a sponsored round.
Yep.
It was a private launch. This is open to pretty much everybody, and we are putting up the prize pool. So in this round, as CryptoStyle alluded to, we are offering the clues to be purchased, and so that you will buy with SOL.
All
so
right.
if you want to buy the clues, you already have your Phantom wallet connected.
Yeah.
You will be purchasing the clues with SOL. So that is how it interacts with the blockchain up to this point.
And when you solve the prize, is that all on the chain? So when you solve it, or do you need to go to Discord and hand in your answers, or how does that work?
Everything is handled on the website. You don't need to use Discord for anything. We had a couple people ask us, do I need to post a screenshot here? Everything is handled by the website. This is unlike some of those other puzzle games that were on Twitter a couple months ago, where you had to post things to Twitter or DM people. We have everything we need. This is a fully managed application, so everything can happen within the website. There's no need to worry. If you want to come to Discord and chat, no problem. That's what most people choose to do anyway, but you don't need to. So you could play completely solo, just by yourself, never once log into Discord even.
All right.
You can use the screenshots to brag though, if you want.
You can definitely brag.
That is an effective strategy for taunting your opponents.
Yeah, I could imagine people sitting there studying for 2 hours, and then someone just links up. They've got the prize, and you'd be dirty at it. But then it goes to 6 hours or 8 hours or 10 hours, and you're racking your brain. And yeah, that photo wouldn't help.
Well, it's actually, I mean, this has kind of happened. Like the world unfolding was unsolved for quite some time, and then the first solve came in, and it's actually two sides of it. Some people were like, "Wow, I feel terrible because somebody else solved it," and then on the other side of it, they're like, "Wait, somebody solved it. It's not unsolvable." And so we did see that, and then as the number of people who solved it kept ticking up, you saw people fall on both sides of that emotion.
So I want to go through several topics I think we should talk about is how the winners and prizes are determined. I also think going deeper into the clues, because this is going to be for Grape as well. We've got 100 whitelists for our community. And then also the next stage 5. So I guess let's tackle that, because there is a question from the audience. Will there only be one winner each time, from Cursed? So can we talk a little bit about the structure of prizes and how they go out? Because it's not a simple answer. There's a whole lot of prizes in the end.
Yeah, do you want me to cover it, Flipper?
Yeah, you can cover the specifics. We'll just say that in general, we want to reward the first people to solve it very heavily. It is a race. It is more difficult to solve it first than it is to wait later, especially as clues are released. So the heaviest prizes will go to the first people that solve it. That said, you will still be able to receive prizes even if you solve it on the last day. There's still an option to receive prizes then. And CryptoStyle can go into what that means, but you can continue to play throughout up until the last 30 seconds, which we had a last 90-second winner in our first game. Someone won in the last 90 seconds right before the game ended. But you can keep playing and still be able to receive prizes.
Yeah, cool. So the prize categories, what we're looking at right now, there are placement categories. So placing 1 through 5. There are random game completions / winners. So let's say 1,000 people play and 45 complete the game. Some number of those random completionists will get a prize. Then you have another category, and this is intentional, for the people who tried and like maybe solved 2 of 5 or got a couple answers right, kind of thing. There's a category for those players who get a correct answer, also randomized. And then the last one is first to solve a puzzle. So there are these 1/1 NFTs. They do relate to the puzzles on the board, and they are awarded to the people who solve the puzzle first. So interestingly, in the last game, I'm pretty sure there were 3 different people who solved the puzzle, the 3 ciphers first. And each one of them got one of the 1/1 NFTs that were related to that puzzle. We also awarded, this was in the past, we're still deciding on the second set of NFT winners, but we awarded a Big Brain NFT to all 27 people who completed all of the 3 puzzles in the last one. And the interesting thing about that is, the utility is unknown right now. And what is known is how difficult it is to win them. So the people who have won them have pretty much not been listing them. But on the other side of that equation, there isn't obvious demand, like what would trigger demand for somebody to want to own one. So we may cover that at some point, but it's not going to be discussed right now.
Yeah, I like seeing some of the numbers. So 27 big brain prizes. If people actually have a look, I've done a link in the live chat. There's 4 currently for sale. So that means that 4 out of 27 are on the marketplace. But one person was smart enough to put it up at 0.5 Solana and take a quick half a Solana, and it sold. Of course it sold. I went looking for that. I didn't monitor it, obviously 24 hours a day, but I would have bought it at half a Solana. That's crazy.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, there's nothing wrong with taking profits, right? Like I have a lot of experience with finance and trading, and if you take profits, go for it if that's what you want to do. But just remember that there was a hard no comment before.
yeah, and that's what I was kind of alluding to as well, is that you don't know the value of it. It is awesome though, because this is play to earn. It was a free event. They've earned NFTs from completing it. There was 27 finalists, and that's their absolute choice. Do they want to sell it at whatever price they want? Obviously, there's been no other sale since. People have got ridiculous prizes on there at the moment, but like you can't know the future of the NFT. If you've solved it once, I would have thought, me personally, I would have kept all of mine. But there is a good question here. Where was it? Can we submit multiple answers? That triggers a bunch of questions. So can we talk a little bit about how if you submit an answer and it's wrong, because obviously we can see the graphs on how many wrong answers were there. So we can submit those multiple answers, but can you talk a little bit about how when you do a wrong answer, what the lockout period is and all that kind of thing?
You can submit as many answers as you want. We have a bunch of checks in place to make sure that people aren't trying to game the system. So if it's in good faith, you really don't have anything to worry about. If you are writing a bot to try to, brute force it and guess every possible combination of letters and numbers, that's not going to go well for you. But if you're just guessing, you really don't have much to worry about.
All right, another one from Rao870. What are the clues costs? We didn't actually talk about the cost of the clues.
Right now, okay, I don't know if we covered the background here, but basically each cipher has 3 potential clues that can be unlocked. And each clue we're planning on having be a flat cost. And that cost will be 0.03 SOL. And part of what the people in the audience and people within the Grape community are going to get is the ability to get a coupon for 1 free clue.
Yep.
Now, before all hell breaks loose on that, like the other piece to these clues that we are planning is that there will be a delay before people can use them. so that if people want to win with no clues, like they have an opportunity to do that. And two is that you can't unlock all 3 clues for a cipher all at once. So like 3 hours into the game, we're like, clues can now be purchased, and somebody's like, oh sweet, I'll buy them all. Like that's not going to work, because we're going to lock the second and third tier clues for each of the ciphers, if that makes sense. So yeah, go ahead.
So with the clues then, if people are playing as a team, for example, I want to talk about team play a little bit differently, but while we're on the subject, can people have multiple clues and, they've gotten from the community they're a part of, and they would then be locked into those timers still, wouldn't they? So you can only use one clue at the 3-hour mark and then one clue at the 6-hour mark. Is that how you've kind of got it working?
More or less, yeah. Yeah, so like you can't, even if you're playing with a bunch of other people, you cannot unlock all of the clues of the game 3 hours in.
My missus is going to be stoked if I'm sitting up till 4 a.m. to play this 3 hours in.
Yeah, you like go poach people to try and play with and collaborate with in our Discord.
But
like typically the people who posted images of them solving stuff.
I like it. I do like that micro mint. It is a micro transaction, but do you want to talk a little bit then about how that is part of your business model? That's going to be going majority of the funds towards the team, and then the rest is going to be put into the following prize. So could you break that down a little bit for the AMA?
Yeah,
go ahead. You do it.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just take this. So we can't just put in 10 SOL every time and never get anything back and pay for the servers and the development time. That's just not how the real world works. I know there's a lot of free games out there, but they usually have some sort of business model, be it ads or anything. We're not doing ads. This currently is the business model. The nice part about it, though, is that we are giving back part of the clue cost to go back into the prize pool. So if you were to buy a clue, part of that is automatically dumped into the pool that anyone can win, including yourself. So if you were close to solving it and you buy a bunch of clues, you can basically recoup part of your cost. Of course, we are taking a percentage of that because we need to, stay afloat if you guys want this game to continue. But we think that's a nice way to kind of give back to the community and kind of incentivize people to buy clues, because you're gonna be able to get part of it back. And you'll be able to see that live time. You'll be able to see the prize pool ticking.
I like it.
So if there's a lot of players playing at once, you will see it go from 10, 10.1, 10.2. You'll be able to see that happen in live time.
Okay, cool. I like that. So does that mean we see live the percentage? We don't see how many clues have been bought. We just see what the total prize pool of that round is.
Yep, just the total prize pool. We don't want to give too much information about who's buying what when, but in general, you can have an idea of, things are happening.
All right, there is a good question here. It was another one from Flabber. Can we have a look at the previous contents puzzles and how they were solved? So Des was great. He relinked the word unfolding, but does that mean we had the 3 live? Does the world unfolding, does that actually have the answer in it, or it's just how to break it down?
It has the answer in it.
As we're live, can you TLDR that? So there's the process, step, and checking the data. So
right down under the sound wave looking thing, it tells you what the sound wave says.
Oh, I see. So can we break that down a little bit? Spend a couple of minutes on it for us?
Sure.
So this is the open quiz. So this is like really research deep into how these puzzles are going to be. This was the hardest one on the day. You guys thought it was the easiest one, which is really interesting to see that flipped about. But yeah, break it down for us if you can, Flabber.
Basically, puzzles fall into a couple categories. The way that this one starts is that there just simply isn't a lot of information to go on, which you can kind of take as a clue in and of itself. There's no text. It just looks like just a random picture, kind of abstract art. And so we had a lot of people saying, we don't know where to go from here. What do I do? That's a pretty common response, and that's very fair. So in this one, you pretty much race to Google, which is a lot of the answers, but that won't always get you there. But in this case, it can help. So if you were to reverse image search this particular image, you would find it on the internet. And that should tell you a couple things. It should probably tell you that there's not something about what you're looking at, like the actual pixels in the image, that gives you the answer, simply because it exists on the internet. And it's highly unlikely that somebody else posted some secret cipher in there. So there has to be something else about this image, or about something inside of it that has the clue in it. So that was kind of the first big step, is realizing that, okay, this thing exists on the internet, so we should maybe look and see, what's referencing it, where it comes from, if that gives us anything. And as we go through the steps, we find that it kind of gives you a little bit of a hint. The reason that we thought this was one of the easier ones is because you can speedrun this puzzle. You can't speedrun the other puzzles. The other ones, the medical exam and the maze, there really is no way to speedrun. This one, if you were to have downloaded it and just thrown it into a bunch of different programs, you could have gotten lucky and opened it up in an audio player, and it would have played you the answer. So the time to completion for this one could theoretically have been 30 seconds, if you knew exactly what to do. Of course, that's not usually the case. It wound up being a much more in-depth solution to actually get there and not do the speedrun approach. As you look through the list, you'll see there's like hexadecimal, and there's audio tags and things like that. So there's a lot more that goes into it, but we thought people might just try a bunch of things, like throwing it into VLC or throwing it into Audacity. Now, that said, don't feel like you have to do that with every single puzzle going forward, because I know we're going to get that people are going to automatically throw every image into there.
Yeah, it's important, because obviously now people are going to be thinking, well, those 630 people that experience this the first time, they may have some kind of a slight advantage, and they will, because they've played it, they've thought, they've been it. So now I like that you guys did release how to think it through, and the answer, of course, is important for them. So it gives us more back towards that other question: what are the tools we need to look at? That's really cool. I like it.
Yeah, and let me just add that. I'll just add one quick thing, just that was one type of puzzle. The general goal here, and we'll touch on this a little bit with teams, but the puzzles hit on several different categories. So a couple would be like music, science, literature, sports, computer science, and a couple other ones. But it really tests your full knowledge spectrum. So it isn't like you have to be a programmer to do this. There's many different fields of knowledge that we're testing here.
So let's take that as a step into the team play. So it's good to have that. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you found there was 2 teams playing, trying to get reward 2, 3, 4, 5 out of the event? Can you break that down for us?
No.
That's all right. That's right. I don't want to overstep. So
I'm just kidding. I'm sort of kidding, but I mean, look, like the rules for the game are, you can collaborate, but you cannot strictly answer share. And what that means is, like, the first person to finish the game, this is the example I like giving, first person to finish the game who got all 3 ciphers right, if they go in general chat and drop all 3 answers, they ruin the game and they DQ themselves, and like, it's just not a good situation. So that's clearly like the most illegal thing you could do. So then when you backtrack to like, what is the difference between me collaborating with somebody else and strict answer sharing, you can just, it's basically like copying somebody's answers on homework versus actually doing the work and sitting there and studying with them. And some of that data can come out when we're looking through it. So that's really all I can say of like the how we discover, etc., and like what the general guidelines should be for collaborating with other people versus strict answer sharing. Basically, if you're trying to game the game and you're trying to game the system, like not legal. It is illegal.
Yeah, so what's stopping? I'll give an overview of I'm planning on doing it with friends. We're going to screen share. We're going to be on Discord. We're going to have a couple of drinks. And we're putting in a single answer. So obviously we know now that we can only do one clue at 3 and then at 6 hours. But I guess it does break it down further. I don't want to go too far down gaming the system, but what's going to be the rules in check to stop teams beating the regular players by themselves? So the first prize went to someone that did it himself without clues. So obviously he's a very intelligent person. But then what are the checks in place to stop the teams taking away all the great prizes?
Yeah, so I mean, one thing you can guarantee is that the first person to solve the puzzles, if it's the first wallet, you don't necessarily have to worry about cheating, etc. Right? Like maybe maybe the number one person to finish was 6 people, or a wife and a husband playing, or 2 brothers. We don't know who's behind the actual wallet. But what we don't have to worry about with the first place position is like any sort of distribution or issues like that. Now, where it gets more complicated is doing the other placements, but that's why the lion's share goes to the first position. And that's also why other positions are like winners are randomized and the payouts are randomized. Because it means that like if somebody says, okay, let's wallet rotate and get all my 50 friends to put in all the right answers, like there's no guarantee that any of them are going to get anything. And that's the only way to balance that out when people are trying to game the system like that.
Yeah, because for me, thinking like it's going to be awesome fun to sit down with friends. So obviously, you guys have encouraged people to play as teams and trying to make sure you push them in the direction of not trying to game the system at the same time, because we want to make this an event that goes around for a long time going forward.
Yeah, and the other thing is like there's kind of like the secret code of conduct between some of the best puzzle players. Like they simply won't share the answers. It's kind of like a magician, you know. Magicians never share the magic trick. It's very similar in the puzzle community. Like you can collaborate, but you don't strictly like outright give the answer away to people for nothing. Doesn't happen.
But then what stops them not selling that information? I guess that touches right there. They could potentially sell that to someone through a private chat or something like that.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, there's always kind of insider trading. We can't kind of monitor like the NSA or whoever, like everybody's conversations. So it's kind of a risk that you have with information-based games. It's kind of like back in the day, you know, you would have the only way to figure out all the cheat codes would be to read the manual that somebody wrote, or like the walkthrough. Like the walkthroughs would get printed and put on shelves, and people would go and pick up a walkthrough and then just have all the answers to the game. And I think so many games have that problem. It's not unique to us.
Yeah, and I do like the magicians never shows how they do it, because I'd expect for the person that wins, they're not going to want to give people how they broke it down, because there's going to be a future competition that they're going to compete in and want to win that first prize as well.
Yeah, it's true too. I don't know. I guess I can say this, Flipper, it should be okay, but we are thinking about the possibility of calculating points per player.
Like a leaderboard.
Yeah, like a leaderboard, and carrying those points across games and rounds, etc. So yeah, like in the scope of the first round, you felt like you may have won, or you got second, or you got third, but like maybe there's a bigger prize at the end. Maybe, I don't know. Like, but I think to be concerned is you should be cautious about who you're working with, how much you're giving up, who your competition is, etc.
I keep thinking Austin Powers and the toilet scene. Who is your daddy and what does he do? That is amazing. Let's talk about the next quiz then. That's on February 5th, 1500 UTC. We've chatted personally about time zones, and obviously it's very hard to work something that's great for the world 24 hours a day. I think you've done well with the time zone. And let's talk a little bit about that. 5 ciphers. Do you think it's going to be twice as long an event? So it was 3 the first time. This is 5. How do you think that's going to work out for the whole event?
Yeah, I mean, I think so general question there is just how do we think the 5 ciphers and how the next event's going to go?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to see some traction within the crypto community for puzzle solving. We're trying to branch out to bring more players in, and I think like big picture, and we've said this from a strategy perspective at least, is these people who are very smart solving these puzzles, like what else can you do with that group of people? Go solve other communities puzzles or create your own, or there's just a lot of possibility there. So I think just from what we're trying to gain is in community growth and some of the people that we bring on board and who want to play the game and who enjoy the game. And that's the other thing, is like people who get pissed off because they didn't win or they didn't get a free handout in the game. It's kind of like, well, you probably, I mean, like, probably shouldn't have played, right? Like, because we're not guaranteeing that you get anything for playing. You should enjoy it. Like, it's part of, it's difficult, but that can be enjoyable too. Not everything that's easy is enjoyable in life. So I don't know. That's kind of just a tangential point. Is like we hope to grow the community. We hope to see it be hardcore puzzle solvers. We hope to see even beginners come into play, and we hope to leverage the community to build other amazing things. It's not just like Flipper and I look and listen at what everybody says in our Discord, ideas, etc., and we try and incorporate them as best as we can.
So 630 people in the first 3-round cipher, three cipher round, and would you think 1 to 2,000 would be a great win for this weekend if we get that kind of turnout?
Yeah, I think it would. I'd be very happy with that. Ultimately, we'd like to open it up to more than just Phantom wallets and more than just Sol, etc., to really get a ton of people playing. But one step at a time. I think 1 to 2,000 would be amazing. It'll be really competitive. There are 5 this time. There's 3 last time. It will last a bit longer, about double the time. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. There are some difficult ones in there that I can say for sure will take quite a bit of time to figure out. But there's other ones that you can get pretty quickly too. So we'll just have to wait and see.
So is there a way, because you keep saying there's other ones you can solve quickly, do you have to do them in order of the ciphers? So if there's 5, you've got to start at the first one and go through, or can you do them in different orders?
You can do them in whatever order you want. And for some people, like CryptoSol was saying earlier, some ciphers are just really easy to certain people. They're like, oh, I get it. I know what I need to do. And other people have no idea. And that will apply to many different ones, especially since they involve different disciplines of knowledge now. Someone might understand sports really well and can answer a sports one, vice versa with music. So you can do it in any order that you want. You just need to get the 5 correct.
So we're coming close to the hour. I want to get closing thoughts eventually as well. We'll go through a couple of the questions I've got in the AMA channel, which we started through the week. How do you plan to create massive adoption for the game, considering the fact that the ciphers are difficult and boring for the untrained? So we did touch a little bit on this earlier. Obviously, it's not like a League of Legends or it's not like a first-person shooter or something. But are you happy with what you sort of said before? People are going to come if they enjoy this kind of thing, or how do you plan on creating that mass adoption?
I think how does a game become interesting to somebody who isn't necessarily playing it? And I'll put an analogy out there, which is like like a guy is sitting down playing, and maybe his girlfriend's not watching or not playing, and vice versa, and it's The Witcher. And all of a sudden she's kind of invested in the story, or he's kind of invested in the story, and they're never touched the controller. So I think part of the way you can bring mass adoption is reeling in more of the story and bringing that to be more accessible, and figuring out how to, like, for somebody who's not the person who's always winning, like what is their part? What part do they play in the entire game? And I think that's kind of a mystery to be solved for us. And that's one way to solve it.
All right, the next one is what is the strategy to getting more sponsors for the events? Are there plans to form long-term partnerships, and what are the incentives for other protocols to sponsor these events? So you mentioned, I think it was the Jupiter protocol you mentioned that were the first two to solve. Are they continuing on to be your sponsors for the next events and going forward?
Marinade's going to sponsor this coming round. So I think like when you're thinking about incentives for a project like that, it's an interesting opportunity for them to pick a project that is on the smaller side, and maybe they're acting somewhat like a launch pad.
Yep.
Or you're a project that's like mid-size and you want to expose yourself to some really smart people, or people who are interested in prize pools or pooling systems or staking mechanisms and incrementing prize pools and things like that. Like, pretty good opportunity for people in DeFi to kind of drop in and be like, hey, this is our project, this is cool, we'll give you, we'll pay out in XYZ token. And now you have this token, like maybe you want to try and explore what using MSOL looks like in the ecosystem, or you want to see what Invictus looks like in the ecosystem. Like those are some things that you could, just think about why a sponsor would do it.
Just trying to read. Sorry, you go, Flipper.
Yeah, and I just want to add one thing. Sometimes, like, you're watching a TV show and it gets renewed for a second season, and you watch it and you're like, this feels like they're just making it up as they go along. I will say that we have a lot planned for this game and very forward looking. So things that are coming, or little hints that you might find in, well, really anywhere across the game, they will probably have a meaning. So just keep that in mind going forward, that this game is intended for many stages, and it is, I will say, pretty well thought out right now. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. Great answer. We are, like I said, touching on the hour. I didn't actually touch into the personal side of things because, we spoke about it before Christmas. If you didn't launch and that, would you guys need to take on full-time work? So do you want to talk a little bit about that, Crypto?
Yeah, I mean, you got to fund a game somehow. And that's kind of, if you're bootstrapping it, you're funding it with your own cash, and you have to figure out a way how to do that. And I think like we are in the process of doing that, and we have been approached by different investors, and we've kind of just rejected going down that lane right now because we're more interested in seeing how the first round plays out. Like, we're trying to deliver the best experience for players and bring that experience to the most people. And that means that you kind of have to take sacrifices along the way to figure out how to make that work.
So there must be some grueling hours for you then, having to do a normal job as well as getting it going, getting all the questions, the media, the answers, and during the events. Have you got a little bit of time off work at least for while you do the live event?
What's time off again? So, I mean, like half joking here. I was telling Flipper that I don't know, this is like 15 hours into the day now. I've been working, so I do find time to exercise about an hour and a half a day. That keeps me kind of sane right now. But crypto, obviously a lot of people know that it's demanding in terms of the time zones of people and the speed at which people want things to be delivered and what their expectations are. And then, day-to-day jobs, depending on what sector you work in, can be the same. So the good news is I get a lot of brain sharpening everywhere I go. So by the time I'm working on the game, I've seen about everything you could possibly imagine, I guess.
I think it's important, and it's good to hear that you do the hour and a half exercise a day. I do all of mine in the morning at the start of my day, so it's an amazing part, keeping that physical energy going into the mental health side of things, and it's important to keep moving. So obviously, I'm working with Step N, and it's a great part of my day. But let's do some closing thoughts then. Flipper, you got any closing thoughts? There would be plenty we haven't touched on. This is probably the most detail we've actually gone into the game, because normally we had you on the Solana Gaming Saturdays at half an hour. So would you like to have any closing thoughts then?
Just good luck to everybody playing. Just want to say one quick thing, which is, in developing this game, we go through lots of code, lots of checks and balances. Just to answer some of the questions here. Yes, we have lots of checks in place. There's lots of ways to prevent people trying to abuse the system, etc. We've noticed lately, though, that there's just like one piece of code that is behaving in a way that seems kind of impossible. We don't really know why. But if you guys see that while you're playing the game, I mean, I guess you can probably just ignore it. It's probably nothing.
There's one here from Des. I think he may be one of your regulars, but is the level of IT nerd knowledge required going to increase, stay the same, or decrease in the future? I think you kind of touched that earlier.
Yeah, IT nerd knowledge is, like I said, computer science is one facet of one couple of the puzzles. It's good to have. It will pretty much always help you because the game is on the computer, but you will not need that. Certainly will not need it for every puzzle, and a lot of them can be solved without it just entirely. And if you don't know it, you can probably look it up, or you can even find a friend to help you.
Phone a friend. Lock it in. Mm-hmm. I love it. Any closing thoughts from you, Crypto?
Yeah, I mean, I saw some questions regarding blockchain P2E gaming and predatory tactics on citizens from different countries, and I saw some other questions regarding, big corporate off-chain games combating, like playing against what we're building, etc., and vice versa. And I think the first one that I mentioned, just kind of like predatory tactics, etc., the key to a good puzzle game and being a good person is fairness.
Yeah.
And I think like we're very focused on delivering the fairest experience that we can. That means considering the time zone that we launch things, considering the prices of things, everything. So if something comes off as unfair, like understand that, it could have been overlooked, but maybe not. But like we are always trying to do what is the fairest thing by the community. That's another big part to what makes puzzle games successful, because you assume that the people behind these screens, like our little avatars, are doing what's best for everybody, and it's fair and it's honest. So that's a big thing. And I think, I mean, we're just grateful for everybody who plays, who enjoys it, and like, please share feedback. And if you know somebody who's interested in playing the game, like, send them your way, send them our way. And I know, and we know that means that's your competition, quote unquote. But again, like Flipper alluded to, we're looking bigger than just the round. So if that's true, like, is your competition always going to be your competition? Are you always going to be playing alone? If you're not, like, there's a lot of things that you should be considering that are not just right in front of your nose and right under your nose. So that's all I can say.
Yeah, I'm super happy you guys came back. I'm really keen to actually get in and have a crack this weekend. And it's lucky that my 1 a.m. on a Sunday morning, it's actually not a terrible time for me, because like you guys know, the world of crypto doesn't sleep. So I'm normally up at that time anyway because of other events. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm grateful that you guys came back. I'm very awesome to get some of these whitelists out to our crowd. And I'll get details from you for that later. But I wish you guys the best of luck as well going forward for that event. And yeah, I'm keen to see it all in action.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.